And what's up, Gamecock Nation? We are live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or you could be listening to us after the fact on all the major podcast platforms. Wherever you are, we are glad that you're here. Wednesday episode of the show, as always, brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond of the Columbia Mortgage Network. Clint, great dude, great Gamecock, supporter of Gamecock Central, and a great way if you're in the market for a new house or maybe you just want to save some money on refinance. Hit Clint up. He's my top mortgage guy. Even by the numbers, he's one of the top mortgage guys in the entire state of South Carolina. ClintHammond.com, 803-771-6933. His NMLS number is 71597. C. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com is how you can shoot him an email. However you contact him, promise you, he'll take care of you, let you know what your options are, let you know exactly what that monthly payment's going to be down to the penny. He'll take care of you. So hit Clint up if you're in that market. And like I said, tell him that we sent you, and he's going to take care of you. Chris, we've now seen what? We're at 5 practices complete for South Carolina. For those who have not been paying attention, we have a little bit of a new feature, I would say, that is kind of an extension of our GC Live show. After the practices, we've been doing these quick hitters. Kendall Smith, who has done an outstanding job as our new intern, has been putting those together for us. Chris, I didn't really know if people like what the reaction would be to those, but it's actually been really, really good. So if you have not seen those, go to our YouTube or go to GamecockCentral.com on the day of practice, and you'll see sort of our right off the bat initial thoughts from practice. And now, man, I spent a little bit of time before we went on air here, man, just sort of trying to think big picture. We have at least seen enough of practice to an extent to start maybe talking about some things we've seen, and you start to hear from players. You start to hear who's caught their eye, who has maybe popped a little bit in practice. It's hard to start thinking about this unit as like a team yet, as far as expectations. You haven't seen enough to like change expectations for this team for this year, I feel like. But you can start to get a feel for maybe some individuals who have stepped up, I think.
Yeah, you can. And, there have been some common players that have been brought up by their teammates as having stood out. Listening to some of the offensive players, for example, on Monday, Marcellus Dow was a guy that more than one of them brought up. Listening to some of the defensive players, those tended to go a little bit more broad. Hey, everybody's doing a really nice job. That's what we heard from Jamar Brown and some of the other ones. But, some of the receivers gave the other guys in the room, some props. Marcellus Dow, again, like I said earlier, that was a guy that a couple of the receivers mentioned as having really stood out. And, you hear yesterday, Mo Kaba couldn't even come up with the name of Zaquandre White first, but knew his number and knew his nickname and was referring to Zaquandre White and talking about some of the battles that they had out on the perimeter and things of that nature. So you are starting to hear some of that trickle out as far as in the players' minds, which guys are having a good camp.
Yeah, man. So obviously, when you're at a practice, everything's flying by like 100 miles an hour. You're trying to figure out a depth chart. You're trying to get an idea of who's doing what, who looks differently. Oh, let me put eyes on a newcomer. What's the depth chart look like on offense? What's it look like on defense? Luckily, with the video stuff we have been able to have, I've been going back and just watching through the raw video and seeing, is there something that I missed? Is there something that I didn't see when we initially got out there? And there's a position that has been a question mark to an extent, but there are a couple of veteran guys at it. That's the linebacker spot. And that's a position, Chris, I feel like South Carolina has had. You go back the last, 5-6 years, there's been some really good individual play at linebacker. If you look at a guy like Ernest Jones, before that, you go back to T.J. Brunson, Sky Moore. There's been some good, solid players at that position. Has there been great overall linebacker play or depth of strong play at that position? Probably not, in my opinion, and probably most people's opinion. So this year, you got a couple of guys, Brad Johnson, who's really playing a true linebacker spot this year, and he's done some of that. And of course, Sherrod Green, we've seen some really nice flashes from Sherrod Green throughout his career. It's never all come together with a fully healthy season. And now he's playing one of those main 2 linebacker spots. So it actually caught my attention, man. Looking at Brad, I knew he looked slimmed down. And I know you've always been really high on Brad's ability, his upside. He's dealt with injuries as well. But on one of these plays, it was just a little swing pass out to Marshawn Lloyd. And defense was clearly in man coverage. And I watched Brad flip his hips, run to the sideline, get to his spot, and cut off Marshawn Lloyd, who we know is a very explosive individual. And it's one of those things I didn't stand out at all when we were there live. But I was like, man, Brad Johnson is moving as well as I have ever seen him move, especially being asked to play in space for really one of the first times in his career. So I do, it's one play. Don't get me wrong. But we are in the land of overanalyzing right now. It would be huge. Let's just say it like this. It would be huge for South Carolina if Brad Johnson and Sherrod Green can have the most healthy, best season they've had in that uniform. And if a guy like Debo Williams can sort of come along, hit his own pace, be a backup, get mixed in there, learn from some veterans, and then slowly play more, as opposed to him or a Mokaba or something like that having to just go out there and play.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got a Mokaba, like you said, Debo Williams. Mo played a decent amount last year. Debo completely new. You got Damani Staley, who's played a lot of ball around here and came back for a super senior season. I think, Wes, what you're saying is dead on. And I'm glad you brought up Brad, because I had a chance in the preseason media day before practice actually kicked off. I had a chance to go talk with Brad just one-on-one in that setting. And he's a great kid. His mom done an outstanding job raising him. He's actually got a younger brother, Wes, that he says that we're going to be tracking at Pendleton. He's a freshman. So watch out for that. But Brad's path's interesting. He's a guy that growing up, and he was explaining this to me, in Pee Wee football, he played offensive guard and nose tackle. Remember his senior season of high school. He was a defensive end. He played with his hand on the ground, pass rush, play the run. And the Shrine Bowl that year, played Brad Johnson at nose guard, you remember, and he was very disruptive. So it was very much of a thought that even coming out of high school, the folks that coached him at Pendleton thought that he was going to be a hand in the ground guy and he would continue getting bigger and bigger. So we saw some of that at South Carolina with him playing buck early in his career. Year 1, 2017, probably needed a red shirt, but was forced into action, played some, showed some flashes. Later in his career, had some injuries, was moved to Sam. And so one of the things I talked to him about during media day was, transitioning from that Sam linebacker spot that's different than a Mike or a Will to playing a Will linebacker. What are the biggest differences? What are your biggest concerns? And where I naturally went with it was, hey, was pass coverage the biggest adjustment? And he said, yeah, definitely. He said, you're sitting out there and you're used to watching an offensive tackle and he's telling you everything that you need to know versus looking at the entire field. Oh, God, I've got to cover this running back, this tight end, this receiver. And so he said it was a big adjustment, but he's getting more and more comfortable. And my biggest question was also that, playing in space, but he has shown some of those flashes. He's trimmed down, obviously, and he is a good athlete. I've always still been intrigued by, hey, if he's stuck with a defensive end type position, what could he be? But obviously with a huge need at linebacker on this team, it makes some sense that they moved him there.
And I think we've talked about this defensive line. We've talked about that potentially being a strength on defense. Let's be honest, that's defensive line is going to have to be a strength on defense. But if those guys can play to their potential, and you know what? We've seen those guys get after the passer at times. Individually, you can go through that entire list of defensive linemen and be like, they have ability to get to the quarterback. the question in the past has been, can they hold up against the run? And if they do that, it makes life all the more easy on Brad as he makes this transition, on Shirai Green as he looks to put it all together in his final year. Debo Williams, who will be sort of trial by fire in the SEC. I think Debo Williams is going to play. Like, he's already out there with the second team as a true freshman. He's going to be on the field. How much remains to be seen. But all these guys at linebacker, we sometimes forget it's all connected together. And the better that defensive line can keep the offensive line off your linebackers and getting to them in that second level, the better they're going to play. But Brad, I don't know, man. Brad looks, to me, just physically off the hoof, eyeball test, all that stuff. Brad looks like a linebacker now, in my opinion. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. Logan with a question here, Chris, that actually probably a pretty good segue for us as we're talking linebackers. Jamar Brown, dude, it kind of seems like Jamar Brown is truly a safety now. Like, it was last year, before he got hurt, it was, well, this guy's going to play dime. And it was sort of like it's kind of like a hybrid deal where they're like, he can cover. He'll give us another guy, another athlete on the field when you're trying to match up. Now he's out there with the second team at safety. He even made a play on the ball. We talked about that in our quick hitters yesterday, sort of helped dislodge it from, I believe that was Ortre Smith. Had a little, point of contact, both of them going for the ball. What did you take away from what Jamar had to say yesterday? I've always liked him as a kid as well, and he's always been a really good athlete. We've talked about this several times already. His strength as a linebacker was coverage. That is different than being asked to go play 12 yards off the line of scrimmage, in space, track guys down, all that stuff. This is probably a work in progress, I would think. But what was your takeaway from what Brown had to say, man?
Well, mine was honestly, first glance, was exactly what you said, that it looks like he's sticking at safety. And kind of one of the more lighthearted and kind of funny moments from the press conference was he was asked, hey, can you kind of break down your progression positionally from when he got to South Carolina? And he kind of leaned back and said, oh, that's an interesting question. So, originally, he got to South Carolina. I think he was a will backer. Then he eventually played some Sam and he played some nickel, right? And then he split some time between kind of the nickel, or the dime, rather, not nickel. I'm having trouble keeping up with it. Will, all right. Then he played the Sam linebacker in the dime position. And then he also spent some time at safety. And he was even talking about how this spring with the new staff, he had played some nickel in the spring, missed some time in the spring due to injury, and now is focused full time at safety. So Jamar, all he needs to play is like the penny, and he's gotten like all the currencies out of the way. But he's been at multiple spots. Then he's had some injuries. You look at last season, right? COVID year, weird year, but I think he only played in one game. I think he played in the LSU game last year, and that was it. And then he comes into this year, spring. He's at nickel some, but he's a little banged up. And we know the secondary was kind of nicked up during the spring anyway. So now fully focused in at safety. He's trimmed down. His weight has fluctuated at times to where he's been anywhere from 205 to 225, something like that. I think he said he was, don't have it in my notes, 210, 215, somewhere around there at this point. And has the look of a safety. Now, some may think, hey, what's up with this linebacker playing safety? Jamar, the book on him coming out of high school, and we saw it in camp one year when he camped at South Carolina, more of a coverage guy. And so he seems more comfortable there. Him talking about it at the media day, he said he felt like he was kind of in the right element with the other guys around him at safety. So it'll be interesting to watch the progression there.
Yeah, well, man, and I think with Jamar, smart kid, well liked, I believe, within the program. You've always heard he works hard, so he'll put everything into that. He's got all the intangible stuff is there, and he just, man, like you said, he really didn't play last year. Wasn't he one of those that was caught up in that whole like we hope to get Jamar back this date. That date gets here, not back. Hope to get him back. He's cleared now, but he hasn't practiced at all. So it was just kind of like a one thing after another for him. Sherrod Green, he went down game 1, I think. Didn't he go down against Tennessee? And then was never back out there. So a lot for these kids to go through, man. But a fresh slate, however you want to say it, a new opportunity. And we'll see what Jamar can do. And I think there have to be some growing pains, I'm sure, man, to making that transition. But I think at the very least, this is the kid that's going to help you tremendously on special teams as well. I mean, I remember Pete Limbo being like singling him out this past spring as one of the guys, because Jamar was banged up this past spring, that he couldn't wait to sort of get out there and see a bit more. So, there are some guys on this defense, Chris, that maybe we don't have a great feel for exactly what to expect from them. Be it that they're at a new position, be it that they're young, be it that they're a transfer. Jordan Strong, he comes in. We didn't get to see him at all in the spring. So what are proper expectations for a guy like Jordan Strong? What are proper expectations for Jamar Brown? Is he going to be a guy that truly plays and is, rotating in? Or is he more of a reserve that goes in, in games that are out of hand and plays a lot of special teams? There are still a lot of questions as far as what the rotation of this defense is going to be that I don't feel like we have answered yet at all.
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's so many guys that offensively and defensively, and then you throw those into special teams too. There's just been all these different factors that have, hindered progress. So, the 3 wide receivers on Monday were a great example of that. And Josh Vann and, Chad Terrell and Jalen Brooks. These are guys that have all had different paths. They've been around for different amounts of time, but, and have had different journeys, but have been hindered by one thing or another, a variety of factors, That same thing applies to defense. With Jamar, when you've played, you're basically on your 4th position now, or 5th, really. Will, Sam, and Dime at South Carolina under the previous staff, played some nickel under this staff, and now at safety, played multiple positions. And so that can hinder you, right? And then also the fact that you've been banged up. You're banged up in the spring under this staff, banged up last season. Did get him back for 1 game, and that was it. And so that makes it tough on a guy, but he's in that boat. Mo Kaba, young player, right? He's a guy that's in that boat for a different reason. You've got transfers who are new to the program. You got a guy like Sherrod Green who's never been able to put it together because, hey, maybe he would have had a big year last year, a really productive season. You lose him early and you don't get him back. Now it's a new staff, new scheme. He's playing the Mike position. So there are all these different factors to where if you're South Carolina, if you can keep everybody healthy and if everybody acclimates, you may be able to get some good production out of some of these guys. I think, Wes, when you look at the D-line, like you mentioned, integrating Jordan Strong, I've still got questions too about how that happens. But for Mike Peterson, he and Jimmy Lindsey are the 2 guys on the staff that are walking around. Probably throw Monterio Hardesty in there and Eric Henry. But those are the guys that are walking around feeling pretty good. They're a little bit more carefree, not as worried. Mike Peterson, I still remember asking him at media day, how do you feel on 3rd and 8? And he couldn't hold back his smile. He said, I feel pretty good. Because you got J.J. Anibare, who was the 2nd leading stat guy in the SEC last year. Aaron Sterling, back for another year. He's dependable. Jordan Birch, a former 5-star. By the way, Jordan Strong, who led the country in sacks last year. So interesting group. And there are others, that could end up contributing. So good problem to have there. At some other spots, it's more about finding the pieces that definitely fit and the depth.
Yeah. Different conversations at some of the other spots. Let's be completely frank and completely honest. I think Greg Atkins probably feels pretty decent about his group. I think there's still progress to be made, especially in pass pro there. But Chris, I think that's one of those things that going up against Enigbare, Birch, Strong, Sterling, that can only help your tackles as far as getting better in pass pro. You're seeing some of the best guys you're going to see every single day right there in practice. So that's always a good thing, man. And so let's try to tie this all together with a couple of questions here. Who's getting starting reps at wide receiver? No real surprise there, I would say. The guys that got the most love in the spring as far as stepping up, being leaders, in the open portions we've seen anyway, it's been the same guy turn out there first string to carry on. Whether it's a 3 wide or a 2 tight end set. I mean, Chris, if South Carolina was playing a college football game tomorrow, I think that's a safe bet that if they were in 3 wide, it's probably Jalen Brooks, Dakereon Joyner, and Josh Vann. I think those are the 3 that are running out there. And Nick Muse is going to be the tight end. And if they're in 2 tights instead of 3 wide, Jaheim Bell is probably going out there on the field. And I would guess Marshawn Lloyd is probably in the backfield with Kevin Harris currently being out. So, dude, I actually haven't talked to you about this. I've started to actually hear, and some people are going to maybe roll their eyes, there is a little Josh Vann buzz starting to hit in camp, making some plays, flashing that ability. I know people are in wait and see mode. That's fine. That's fine. I get it. I'm kind of there too. But, we've talked about him a lot on the show and how you and I sort of, we really liked what we saw out of high school. He doesn't have to be Deebo Samuel in order to help this team. Can he get open, catch the football when it's thrown to him, and do the little things? I wasn't there for his offensive availability. You were. Seemed like he's maybe in a good headspace about everything. Seemed like all the receivers are that we've heard from him. But, man, that even if he can just be that third receiver type, would be really good for this group.
Well, and when you look at Josh Vann, there are some guys, and I'll just be honest, that you look at as a player from a talent perspective, and you just wonder how much they can help. And it doesn't have anything to do with their headspace, like you said, Wes, or anything other than, is that guy good enough to contribute to this team? Is he good enough to get open against high-level competition? There's not that worry with Josh. Has he done it yet? No. But you do know that the talent's there. We saw it in high school. He's flashed it even in high-level competition games. He's very much flashed it. Has he been inconsistent? Absolutely. And I think one thing that you look at is, again, I'll go back to the term I used the other day with Brooks, Terrell, and Josh Vann, honesty hour. They all kind of very much went into detail on those things. I thought it was really cool. I mean, they were confident enough to get up there and kind of talk about what things that had happened in the past, some of those struggles, and how they kind of got past them. And for Josh, he was banged up last season. His sophomore year, he slumped badly. Nobody really knows why that was. His freshman year, he showed some flashes, and he was behind some guys, at that time. So he admitted, hey, I didn't have the best attitude about sitting behind guys. Josh was kind of used to being the man in high school, made a ton of plays. And so I think for him, getting that kind of refresh, that restart, and then being counted on where you're – and not that he was gifted it, he's earned it, but that you're going to play a lot. Okay, you're not going to play maybe week to week. You're not going to play maybe if this guy goes down. You are going to play. The team is counting on you. And he was all smiles on Monday during the media availability. He talked very frankly about it, but he did, like you said, Wes, seem to be in a good headspace. So if his confidence can build through practice, that could be a significant piece for this team, because he is, when you look at this receiver group, natural talent-wise, he's up there as probably one of the best guys. Now they just have to tap into that.
Yeah, somebody asked basically Let me see if I can find it again, y'all. I'm trying to go through the chat here. Is Joyner or Vann in the slot in a 3 wide receiver set? I actually don't know the answer to that, Erlen. Do you know, Chris? I can't remember who they had where.
I think based on and they may change it up some. That's one of the things we've talked about a lot. Marcus Satterfield's offense is moving pieces around. Some of the formations that we saw this week, I think I remember Vann being more in the slot in those 3 wides, but we'll kind of double check all that. We'll go back and watch the tape, Wes. That's something we can do.
Yeah, we can say that now.
Say that now.
I hope I don't start having connection issues. I'm getting that alert again. Shout out Spectrum, as always. I'm going to start naming them, whatever. Shout out to my friend Grace. Grace Sorrell's listening in on Facebook. What's up, Grace? JT wants to know, where is EJ Jenkins on the depth chart? He has flash Sydney / Alshon tendencies. See, that's a big sentence already, JT. I think we gotta be fair to EJ, first of all. We start putting him in greatest of all time level conversation. That's a bit much. But as far as projected top 5 receivers, now I don't think you can say he fell off in camp. That was your question there. But really, it's still a little bit strange to me that even at media day, he had they had these like place cards put out, and it said EJ Jenkins, wide receiver. And then he was asked, Dave Cloninger was like, are you a wide receiver or a tight end? He's like, both. And Dave's like, well, what do you play? And he's like, 50-50.
Yep.
Every single time we've been there, he's been with the tight ends.
Yeah.
And we know he's in the tight end room most of the time.
Yeah.
So I don't consider him a wide receiver anymore. I consider him a tight end who is going to be flexed out quite a bit.
Well, and somebody asked me that today on the Insiders Forum. They asked, what is the split for how much EJ is going to play at receiver and tight end this year? I said it depends on what you consider him on any given play. Like you said, he's in the tight end room, but we know that a staple of this offense is going to be utilizing the tight end and moving the tight ends around in different ways. So if you see EJ Jenkins in the slot, or if you see EJ Jenkins split out and on a regular play or red zone situation, what do you say he is? You can say he's playing tight end, a flexed out tight end right now. You could say that, or you could say he's playing a slot tight end, or you could say he's playing slot receiver or outside receiver. It's all semantics, really. He's kind of a guy that he's in the tight end room. He's learning those concepts, but what they're going to ask him to do at tight end is much more of the receiver kind of responsibilities. He's not going to go in there and play the Nick Muse role where he's going to have his hand in the ground and be in the C area and helping block people. Like, that's not going to be as much his game. When you see EJ Jenkins out there, you can think, here comes EJ Jenkins from the tight end room, right? You can think that, but he's going to be split out or in the slot or what have you much more. So really semantics as far as what he is. He's a pass catcher for this team.
Yes. And I tend to go by what room is he in. And Kevin, rightfully so, says, couldn't you say the same thing about Bell? Yeah. I mean, Bell and EJ are almost in a position on their own, I feel like. They're athletes. You got to be creative. You got to find ways to get them the football. Goal line, yeah, split EJ out wide. Now, Bell and EJ, even though they are very versatile players, they are different skill sets as far as how they will be used. You're not going to see EJ Jenkins, all 6'11" of him is what he looks like standing beside Shane Beamer out there. You're not going to see him lining up in the backfield.
Right.
Whereas Bell, you legitimately could see him get a handoff. Like, you could see him in the backfield as a running back. You could see him in an H-back type role. EJ, I think it's going to be more about either flexed out in the slot or even, I think, down goal line situations. You're going to spread him out as far as possible and make teams decide, am I going to take my linebacker out of the box and move him out there like with that guy like he's a tight end? am I going to put a cornerback out there when my cornerback's probably going to be giving up Lord knows how much height and weight to this kid? And if I'm South Carolina, I'm just going speaking of Alshon earlier, I'm going to Steve Spurrier. We'll throw 3 straight fades over there if we have to. And EJ's going to catch one of them. So, yeah, it's kind of one of those things. How creative can you get as an offensive group to where you're able to use that creativity but keep it simple enough on the kind of player side, in my opinion. So it still works within like the cohesiveness of your entire scheme, your entire playbook, but you're getting creative and finding ways to get them the football. To me, that is the key. That is one of the keys to South Carolina offensively this year. The other key is it's always going to be quarterback. Luke Doty coming on first year as the full-time starter. Someone asked who's the second-team quarterback. Chris, I believe most accurately we can probably say both guys are rotating in. Jason Brown was working with the second-team group when we were out there.
In that one period.
Yes, very clear. Colton Gauthier also been taking second-team reps. There's really a continued battle there. I think at that spot as far as different guys rotating in. Colt, they seem, as you've pointed out, man, they do seem very, very high on Colton Gauthier. Not even just on his future, but sort of on his now, as far as like he is in the mix. I think people assume that Gauthier will be third team. Well, he was second team in the spring for a reason.
Yeah.
So yes, he is firmly in the mix for that second team job. Let's see. What else do we want to hit on, man? By the way, this is kind of random, but I have a reason. I saw on Twitter a poll that said 40% of Americans polled believed that they were in shape enough and athletic enough to compete in an Olympic sport at the Olympic level. And for some reason, when I was grabbing the photo for the show today, and I saw how high, I believe that's Dom. Is Dom Hill 18 on the white side, Chris?
Yeah, it should be.
But I saw the height of these two dudes jumping, and it just sort of clicked in my head, man. And it just like reminds you how athletic you have to be in general to play college football. And also looking at the secondary, man, if you're Torian Gray, it probably is a little bit scary because you got so many moving parts and pieces. But I do think there is some young ability in this secondary. Dominic Hill took some first-team reps in the spring game, I believe. So there are some guys. It's going to take time to get the secondary where it needs to be. But we'll see. Marcellus Dial, again, the book on him when he first got here, man, was this kid is beyond being athletic enough. Like, he is a supreme athlete. He's still just learning to play the position at this level and get comfortable. He's taking first-team reps for all the open portions that we've seen. That's a good sign for him. He's going to be a big part of this secondary. They've got now, obviously, Chris, they've got to get Cam Smith back healthy. That's massive. Cam had a good offseason from everything I heard. They've got to get him back out there. But if you're Torian Gray, we were talking about sort of how Mike P feels, how Greg Atkins feels. How are you feeling right now if you're Torian Gray? Because you've got at least your numbers, right? Like, you've got your quantity of guys.
Oh, yeah.
And you probably have some guys that are flashing lots of ability at times, and then you're probably having plays where they remind you, you're like, oh, man, this guy hasn't played. So Torian Gray is going to earn his paycheck this preseason.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and to answer the question, if I'm Torian, I'm probably, not feeling as stable as some of those other coaches that you've mentioned as far as the confidence level. And it's not a shortage of bodies, like you said. It's not a problem in that regard. It's not going to be like in the spring game when they were nicked up in the secondary, when they didn't have some additions there to add to the roster, where you're playing a walk-on guy who had just joined the team as a corner. You're not in that spot right now, but you are in a spot where you need to get healthy, stay healthy. You need everybody on the roster to be there at all points, and you need to be able to go play ball. So there are guys. I mean, look, Jalen Dickerson was in the 2017 class. He has not played a lot of ball. I mean, has he even played the equivalent of a full season? Serious question. I'm not sure if he has. I'll have to go back and look. But he hasn't played a lot of ball at South Carolina, even though he's, from a program standpoint, been around a long time. He's healthy right now. He's out there. Saw him. It's taking some second-team reps at safety. Jalen Foster. Jalen Foster hasn't even played a ton of ball. He played a lot last year, former walk-on. He's taking first-team reps. R.J. Roderick, can he become more consistent? So when you're looking at the secondary, there are just more questions. You don't say, okay, here are the starters. We feel good about the starters. Here are the backups. We feel really good about the backups. How are you going to integrate them? When do we use this guy and where? You don't feel that way about the secondary. There's still kind of more questions and answers. Not a shortage of bodies, but still some concerns there and some guys that you got to bring along, some guys you got to get healthy.
Travis, good question. Wants to know if Isaiah Norris is on campus. That's actually a good reminder. Chris, we probably need to check on that. I haven't checked. We did not see him at practice. I'll say it like this. We did not see him. That doesn't mean, because they have like the quote injured, and he would not be cleared right away, would be my anticipation, because you have an acclimation period. There is a chance he was just not on the field potentially, because I know they expected him in by this past weekend. We will effort that one. Not positive on that, but that is a good reminder with everything else going on for us to check on that and see, because now I still, it's going to be hard to get in at this point and just be expected to go play a ton. But obviously adding another talented guy at DB would be good for South Carolina. So thanks again for the reminder. Speaking of reminders, here's our reminder on our Gamecock Central kickoff party coming up Friday, August 20th. Chris, it is almost here, man. We're getting prepared, y'all. There's been a lot of behind the scenes work that's going into this, so I can't wait to see everybody out there, man. And 7:00 Friday, August 20th. So that's not this Friday, but next Friday. It is at Still Hands Brewing. That's in Casey, South Carolina, right off of I-77. It says 7 p.m., but actually we are going to be out there before that. 107.5 The Game will be out there before that. You can come out and meet their hosts. Chris and I will be doing sort of an informal football Q&A and recruiting Q&A in the VIP tent at 6 p.m. Preston Thorne, Langston Moore will be out there talking about their book and hanging out, talking ball. Preston is actually going to run our former player panel, which I think that's what I'm most excited about as far as the pre-music part of this, Chris. We've still been working on some different which players are going to be there. Right now, though, from what I understand, good chance, and admittedly, we're 10 days away, 9 days away. Sometimes guys have things that come up. So that's why we have not been pushing the names out there as much as we probably will once we get a little bit closer. But so far, we're looking at probably having Mo Brown out, Corey Miller out, Pops Frisbee's going to be out. I think Courtney Levitt's going to be there. We're working on Ryan Brewer. We're working on Garcia. Are your two guys good for me to go ahead and say, you think, Chris?
Yeah. It looks like
TJ Johnson, who played as much as anybody in South Carolina history, the Iron Man there. Brian Maddox, he'll be out as long as nothing comes up. So we're still working through some guys, and Perry was going to come out. Perry Orth, good friend of the show. He was going to come out, but they actually have a game that night. He's coaching ball at AC Flora. So Perry's going to try to swing by at the end of the night if he can. Michael Skarnecki is going to try to swing by at some point. So And if you are a former player listening, you are invited. So come on out. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun. And hopefully everybody I see everybody commenting right now during the show. We need y'all to come out. We've been planning this thing for a while. I'm ready to put some names with some faces and or some faces with some names, and let's all hang out, have a good time. And of course, Patrick Davis is going to sort of finish off the night. Amazing performer, singer, songwriter. He'll be out there with his midnight choir. They'll be going on probably right around 8:30. So that's sort of the main event there of the evening. Chris, I'm pumped, man.
Gonna be a great night. Like you said, lots of planning's going into it. Really hope everyone can come out. Reminder, free event. So don't look at it and say, I don't want a VIP ticket. I can't get a VIP ticket. If you can't, no problem. Come on out. Free event. Most elements of the show are going to be free. The little recruiting Q&A Wes mentioned, it will be in the VIP tent. We hope you'll look at the VIP tickets. They are probably going to be well worth it. In my opinion, you do get some cool perks. Special guests will be hanging out there, drink tickets, light appetizers, tented area, all that stuff. But if you just want to come hang out for any amount of time at Steel Hands that night for the preseason kickoff party, we'll be out there. Come meet us. Come mingle with your fellow Gamecock fans. Concert, free. Going to be an awesome night, and we're going to continue building it up. It is a little less than 2 weeks away, Wes. So getting close.
Yeah, we better be ready. It's Wednesday, man. A week from Friday.
Yep.
It is here. So 9 days away. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Y'all come out. Thanks to all of our sponsors, by the way, that have made this thing possible. Without you, we literally would not be having the event. So definitely worth mentioning that. You know what, Chris? I'm going to give our sponsors a little bit of love right now because we literally would not be able to have this event without them. Columbia SC Sports and the folks at Experience Columbia. Chris, we got Courtyard by Marriott. That's Columbia Downtown Hotel at USC. Fairfield by Marriott. That's the Columbia Northwest Harbison area. Spring Hill Suites by Marriott. That's Columbia Downtown in the Vista. We got Pasco Quality Workmanship and Service in Charleston, Columbia, and Atlanta. Our friends at 107.5 The Game, of course. Again, they'll be out there. Our friends at Signorama. They're handling all of our signage and banners. Our friends at Lawyer Lisa. Whiskey Jam Whiskey. Air Restoration, Heating and Cooling. And Asherer Paints. That's Asherer Paints is also one of our silver sponsors. And also, if you're still in the market for a tailgating spot, this is a brand new sponsor that we just had in. They still have some sponsorships. They still have some tailgating spots available. Let me give you the exact address. Y'all hang with me. At Game Day Place, 936A South Stadium Road. Tailgating spots are still available for 2021. Call the number 843-693-3705, 843-693-3705. Again, dude, sorry for the sponsor dump on y'all, but we owe it to these sponsors for making this party happen. So all we ask, we don't accept sponsorships from just anybody. Like, these are all people we trust. These are all people that we have vouched for. So please do us a favor. Repay the love and support these sponsors because they have made the event possible. Somebody asked earlier, I want to hit on this real quick, Chris. Somebody asked earlier, does it seem like recruiting has slowed down? In a way, yes, it has, but that's kind of because it's slowed down for everybody. Right now, it is a dead period. Recruits can't be on your campus. Coaches aren't going to visit recruits. Everybody's in preseason football mode. And Chris, frankly, with the run South Carolina had as far as the numbers go, it was going to have to slow down at some point because you start running out of room in the class.
Yeah, you couldn't. I mean, the one span, what was it, 11 commitments in 11 days, something like that. Not a sustainable pace. You're not going to keep that up. So a few factors there. I mean, you're looking at 7 spots left in the class. So naturally, things are going to clamp down, tighten up a little bit. And then the dead period. The entire month of August is dead. So no coaches on the road. no prospects coming to a school's campus. So September 1, it reopens again. High school football will be in swing by then, so you will see the coaches going out on the road to go to games of targets. You'll see them evaluating some guys. For instance, at running back, Wes, going to go and get a good look at some running backs. You'll see the coaches out seeing some of the top guys. Antonio Williams, Dutch Fork, you'll see coaches at his games. Oscar Delp in Georgia at tight end, you'll see coaches at his games. And then in September, of course, South Carolina will be hosting some prospects on campus for some official visits will be sprinkled in there, and then game visits for prospects from 22, 23, the 24 classes. So, it'll pick up a little bit more then. As far as the commitment pace, you're not going to see a pace like we saw this summer at any point in this class. That kind of flurry is over just because of the number of slots. But more activity as far as visits and evaluation stops by the coaches, that'll all ramp back up in September.
Yeah, so I was over there, Chris, at Dutch Fork, watched actually Dutch Fork scrimmage in Greenville, which was an interesting scrimmage to be at because, dude, there's talent. Like, there's talent on both of those teams. And so got a chance to look at Antonio again. Scrimmage setting is different than the in-game setting. But talked to him. He's still kind of slowly just moving through the recruiting process. Spoke very highly of his 2 visits to South Carolina. Still South Carolina and Ole Miss, he's not naming, quote, favorites as far as cutting it down to 2. But whenever a kid has just 2 official visits set, you're kind of giving away where it is right now to an extent. And so I still think those are still the 2 programs that are strongest. I get a South Carolina vibe there, Chris. Ole Miss, again, we've said it like this, you cannot discount Ole Miss. Like, you can't say that they don't have a shot because they do. My vibe, based on things I've heard, based on what I've heard about how the teams involved feel as well, I still lean South Carolina for Antonio Williams. And after watching him out there move around again, it is further confirmed in my mind that the Gamecocks absolutely need this kid on their roster for next year.
No doubt. Huge priority, talented kid, hometown kid, in terms of him playing, not a guy that's a Columbia through and through guy, but does play at Dutch Fork. And so that makes him a huge priority. And so Travis Edwards asked if it's Williams or Hyatt that'll be at IMG. That's Devin Hyatt, 2023 class, has transferred to IMG. Antonio Williams, still at Dutch Fork, will play his senior season there. And so, yeah, super talented guy. We'll see if anything else gets set for him, Wes, in the way of visits. He's kind of left that door open for this fall. But like you said, those 2 are the main ones vying for him. And I do think South Carolina continues, as they have had. They have a great shot with Antonio Williams, and they do need him on this roster.
Yeah, Travis asked, is it Williams or Hyatt that's at IMG? That is Hyatt. Antonio Williams is still at Dutch Fork. He'll finish off his career there. Actually, he's going to play basketball, I understand, there as well. So he'll have football, then he'll finish out his basketball career at Dutch Fork, and then he'll go from there. Chris, there's another kid at Dutch Fork, by the way. And, Dutch Fork always is going to have talent. And Chris, you pay more attention to all the guys in the state than I do because you have Palmetto Preps as well. Have you watched much of the Dutch Fork running back, Jarvis Green?
Yeah, he's a really good player. Really good player. And they always have young receivers. They do have another young receiver there, even without Devin Hyatt on the roster. But, yeah, Green, good player. Good player.
Yeah. Nick Soul, the guy that has a chance to have a really big, upperclassman year there. But, man, this Jarvis Green kid, it was one scrimmage, but I don't think he's gotten the love yet in recruiting that is probably coming his way. There may be even a little bit of just, is it the system? Like, they're always good there, potentially holding him back. I don't know. There was no in-person eval last year for college coaches, but this dude, before this year is over, I think Jarvis Green is going to see his recruitment take off. Very impressed. He put a move on 2 guys in the open field for Greenville that was just nasty. So Mark that name down. I think he's a 2023, so he still has 2 years left, I believe. Chris, can you shake your head yes or no, or you're not sure?
I couldn't quite remember. Not
Okay.
Don't have for you.
I'm 92% sure that he's a class of 2023. All right, yeah, Fred. If you we did talk about Jordan Strong some to start the show. We talked a little bit about the edge guys. If you want to rewind it on YouTube, we hit that up to what 245 pounds. A kid that I mean that's a great sign for him. He's really kind of put everything he has into the strength and nutrition side of things. That's part of the reason he came to South Carolina was because of those resources that South Carolina has. By all indications, that entire, Kristen Coggins and that entire nutrition group do a fantastic job. What did you, real quick here, Chris, what did you think about Jordan Strong sort of being like, I don't like being called a pass rusher?
Good sign. Good. I thought that was cool that he didn't want to be kind of a one-trick pony. And he brought up something interesting, and that was, he's a guy who has a DB background, like out of high school, Camden County. He was a 6'4", 190-pound safety prospect. So this is a guy that now when you look from high school to now, he's gained 55 pounds. Always had the kind of the body type that could put it on. You look at him now and he doesn't look weird, or misshaped or anything. It looks like a natural progression for him. So, so he's got kind of that versatility to him. He's not just a lifelong defensive lineman. He has transitioned to that spot. So he was a little bit more serious and about his business in that media setting. But I thought that was a good sign. Now, obviously, rushing the passer is something South Carolina is going to count on him to do. And I will say, if he wants to take his game to the next level and become an even better two-way player, now this weight that he has added, will help him hold up better at the point, and it will help him in his pass rush exploits at this level.
Yeah, if he has a big year at the SEC level, that is going to be one of those that's going to be one of those stories that they'll like tell at the draft, right? Like, well, this guy came in as a safety walk-on at Georgia State, then he transferred to South Carolina. He's put on over 50 pounds. It's like that's one of those stories that you can't project that. Like, you can't look at a guy that's a safety and be like, hey, this guy's one day going to be an edge player in the SEC.
Yeah.
But when it happens, it's an awesome story. You see that. I feel like we see that happen in the Big Ten with like tight ends who are 202 pounds and then they grow into NFL offensive tackles. And it's like, you can't project the guy's going to gain 100 pounds, but when it happens, sometimes you find yourself a gem. So we'll see if that happens for South Carolina this year. If Strong can live up to what he did last year and maybe continue to add other elements to his game. All right, y'all, that's going to do it. We're pretty much out of time. For Chris Clark, I'm Wes Mitchell. We'll be back on Friday. Hold on one second. Somebody said, can we put that number in the chat? You think they're talking about the tailgate spot?
Maybe.
Did we talk about any other numbers?
Not unless it's a number of some kind of stat that we were going to
True. Let's see. Hang tight. Hey, whoever said that, I can't see the chat right now. Whoever said that, tell me what you're talking about, and I'll put it in here if that's what you mean. The number, if you're looking for that tailgating spot, the number is 843-693-3705. That is for game day place. So I'll put that in the chat right now. All right, y'all. Appreciate it. It was fun. We had a blast. Hope you did too. We'll see you all on Friday. Have a good one.